The distress call reached them across 3 galaxies. It arrived not as sound, but as distortion. A fractured pulse of electromagnetic despair buried beneath the static of dying stars. For 72 hours, it repeated the same broken message on every known frequency, translated by the ship's AI as a plea older than any war humanity had fought. "Help! We are not dead yet." The words rippled through the UHS Resolute like a chill through metal. Admiral Nathaniel Briggs stood on the bridge, staring at the holographic waveform hovering above the command dais. The man had seen his share of strange things beyond charted space: derelict fleets, void anomalies, even the spectral ruins of pre-collapsed civilizations, but never a voice this desperate. "Or this alien. Source?" he asked, his voice low but commanding. Lieutenant Sarah Velasquez, the COEMS officer, glanced up from her console. "Triangulated to the Moore 7 system, sir. Uninhabited. No known traffic. No records of prior exploration. Uninhabited," Briggs repeated. "But something's crying for help." Outside the bridge's panoramic viewport, the Deathworlder fleet drifted in silent formation. 8 warships built not for conquest, but survival. Humanity had earned the name Deathworlders not from pride, but from reputation. Their homeworld's brutal ecosystem had forged soldiers who adapted, endured, and outlasted everything the galaxy threw at them. The fleet was a mobile fortress, each ship bristling with railguns, plasma lances, and nanoforge armor that could regrow after impact. But even among such monsters of war, Briggs felt something unfamiliar: unease. "Put it through again," he ordered. The comms officer replayed the signal. The voice, cracked, synthetic, almost human, echoed through the bridge. "Help! We are not dead yet." Captain Elias Monroe, commander of the destroyer Vigilant, turned toward him on the hololink. "Admiral, we've scrubbed the message 100 ways. The syntax matches nothing in the archive. Whatever's out there, it's ancient. How ancient?" "Pre-collapse. Maybe older." Briggs's jaw tightened. "That would make it tens of thousands of years old, before humanity had even left Sol. Before the fall of the first interstellar republic. Ancient signals meant one thing: danger wrapped in mystery." He turned toward the fleet AI. "Aegis, status." The AI's voice filled the room, genderless, calm, with an undertone of iron. "Fleet systems green. All vessels at combat readiness. Caution: energy readings from Moore's 7 system are inconsistent with known astrophysical models. Recommend reconnaissance before full entry." Briggs gave a sharp nod. "Plot a course. We'll jump in 3 hours. 3 hours later, the Deathworlder fleet tore through hyperspace, streaks of quantum fire bleeding off their hulls as they descended into real space orbit around Moore's 7. The system was a graveyard. A cold red dwarf loomed over shattered moons and drifting debris fields. Scattered metallic fragments glimmered like broken mirrors, orbiting a single planet bathed in dim crimson light. "God," Velasquez whispered. "That's not a planet. That's a corpse." The display magnified the view. An entire world split open from pole to pole, its crust peeled away in titanic fissures that exposed glowing veins of molten rock. The fractures formed strange, almost deliberate geometric patterns, too precise to be natural. Monroe's voice came through the fleet channel, picking up megastructure fragments in orbit. "Carbon nanite weave. Whatever did this wasn't a supernova." "Get me a scan of the surface," Briggs said. A moment later, the sensors resolved an image. Buried beneath kilometers of dust and rubble stood a city, or what was left of one. Dozens of towers jutted at impossible angles, fused by heat and time. Yet deep in the ruins pulsed a faint blue light, rhythmic, steady, like a beating heart, and with each pulse, the SOS repeated. Velasquez's eyes widened. "It's coming from the surface. Same coordinates as that light." Briggs stepped closer to the viewport. "Then someone's still alive down there." A tense silence hung over the bridge. They all knew what that meant. Protocol demanded caution. Alien transmissions could be traps, lures, or remnants of weapons left behind by extinct species. But something about the voice, the plea, refused to let go. Briggs took a deep breath. Deploy recon drones. Full spectral sweep. If there's even a 1% chance someone's alive, we answer. The drones launched from the Resolute's underbelly, descending like silver meteors toward the broken planet. As their feeds came online, the crew watched the surface unfold, vast canyons of glass, collapsed spires, and silent roads littered with petrified remains of something humanoid but unmistakably alien. Then, one feed froze, static. Another went dark, then another. Signal loss on drones Alpha through Delta, Velasquez said, her voice tight. Briggs frowned. Cause? Unknown, sir. No weapon discharge, no EMP signature. They just stopped. Then the lights on the bridge flickered. Every monitor flashed blue. The same voice whispered through the comms, no longer distorted but clear. You came. We remember you. Velasquez paled. That's a direct link. It's contacting us, sir. Briggs didn't blink. Patch it through. The main hollow shimmered, and then a figure appeared. Tall, metallic, humanoid in shape but translucent like a being made of frozen light. Its eyes burned white with intensity, and when it spoke, its voice vibrated through the ship's hull. Deathworlders. You survived the war. No one spoke. Even the AI fell silent. Briggs straightened. Identify yourself. We are what remains of the Ketheri ascendancy, the being said. We called to the stars for aid, and you answered, but you should not have come. Why? Briggs demanded. The figure's form flickered, unstable, fading. Because salvation always arrives too late. The hologram imploded in a burst of static, and every alarm on the bridge screamed to life. The planet's core readings spiked off the charts. Velasquez shouted, Admiral, we're detecting massive energy buildup beneath the surface. It's not natural. It's charging something. Briggs turned toward the viewport. The glowing fissures across the planet brightened, converging toward the blue pulse at the heart of the ruins. Monroe. Pull the fleet back. Too late. A wave of energy erupted from the planet, rippling through space like a solar flare. The fleet's shields flared, ships rattling under the onslaught. Instruments overloaded. Gravity twisted. For a moment, reality itself seemed to bend. When the light faded, Morse 7 was gone. The planet had vanished. In its place floated a sphere of shimmering distortion, like a hole torn in the universe itself, and through that hole, something began to move. Briggs gripped the command rail. All ships, battle stations! The Deathworlder fleet turned its guns toward the anomaly as a silhouette emerged, massive, angular, alive with cold fire. It wasn't a ship, it was a harvest engine, a construct older than civilization, awakening after millennia of silence. Velasquez whispered, Sir, the signal's still transmitting. Help, we are not dead yet. The void screamed. Not with sound, but with distortion, a deep subspace vibration that rattled every hull and scraped across the minds of those who could feel it. In the command bridge of the UHS Resolute, Admiral Nathaniel Briggs braced against the shaking deck as the distortion sphere rippled and stabilized. The Deathworlder fleet, still reeling from the planetary detonation, now faced something the sensors struggled to define. Status, he barked. Lieutenant Sarah Velasquez's fingers flew over her console. Shields at 72%, power fluctuations in all plasma grids. We're still reading gravitational shear from the anomaly. Captain Elias Monroe's voice cut in over comms from the destroyer Vigilant. Admiral, that's not an explosion site. It's an artificial fold. The planet didn't vanish, it was converted. Explain, Briggs snapped. Quantum matter displacement. Someone turned the entire planet into that. Monroe's feed shifted, showing the fleet's external view. Where the planet had once been, a pulsing sphere of fractured light hovered. A wound in reality, surrounded by arcs of ionized plasma. From its center, a vast construct was emerging, kilometer-thick hulls of obsidian alloy, moving like muscle tissue flexing beneath metal skin. It wasn't a ship. It was a harvester. Briggs's blood ran cold. He'd seen ancient war archives from the fall of the First Republic. Legends of automated planetary reapers that devoured biospheres to harvest their energy. The fleets of 1,000 dead species had fallen to them before humanity ever reached the stars. But those machines were extinct, weren't they? Contact the AI, Briggs said. Aegis, classify that thing. The fleet AI's voice returned, subdued and grim. Classification: Type Omega Biomechanical Assimilation Construct. Historical designation: Harvest Engine. Probability of existential threat: 100%. Velasquez whispered, 100%. The Admiral stared at the holographic projection. So the Cathari weren't asking for rescue. They were warning us. The Harvester's form stabilized, its hull glowing with latticework patterns, symbols shifting like circuitry fused with runes. Energy spikes lit up across its surface as if awakening synapses. Sir, Velasquez said, her voice thin. It's scanning us. Briggs clenched his jaw. All ships, evasive formations! Bring the rail batteries online and prep plasma lances. The Deathworlder fleet came alive. 8 vessels pivoted in perfect synchrony, massive silhouettes cutting through the debris field. Thrusters burned blue against the darkness as the fleet spread out, surrounding the anomaly in a wide orbital net. Targeting solutions locked, Monroe reported. We've got one chance at a coordinated alpha strike before that thing finishes whatever it's doing. Do it, Briggs said. All ships, on my mark. But before he could finish, the Harvester moved. A single lance of energy, thin, almost elegant, extended from its core and sliced through the void like a surgical blade. The destroyer Vigilant vanished in a blossom of white fire. No explosion, no wreckage, just disintegration. Gone from existence. Velasquez screamed, Vigilance offline! No escape pods! No debris! Briggs felt something twist in his chest. Monroe had been with him since the siege of Proxima. That beam, it's rewriting matter, he muttered. Turning mass into data, Aegis confirmed coldly. Harvest protocol detected. It is storing the destroyed vessel's molecular pattern within subspace. Briggs slammed his fist against the command rail. It's rebuilding them, feeding on them. Sir, Velasquez said, trembling. The signal from the planet. It's coming from inside the Harvester now. It's merged! Briggs turned sharply. Patch it through. Static filled the bridge. Then the same haunting voice emerged, distorted by interference but unmistakable. We are inside. Help us, Velasquez whispered. They're still alive in there. The voice continued, warped by pain and mechanical echoes. The machine learns from what it consumes. Every species it devours, it remembers. Briggs's eyes hardened. Then if it remembers us, it knows what Deathworlders do when cornered. He turned to his crew. Get me firing control on all batteries. The first salvo struck like the wrath of gods. 12 rail slugs, each the size of a shuttle, tore through space at relativistic velocity. They hit the Harvester's hull and erupted in fountains of molten metal and cascading plasma. The construct staggered, if such a thing could stagger, and retaliated instantly. Beams of disintegration swept through the void, carving through asteroids, vaporizing entire fields of debris. One beam grazed the Resolute's flank, melting its armor in seconds. The bridge shook, alarms screaming as the gravity compensators fought to hold. Damage to decks 6 through 8. Hull breach contained, Velasquez shouted. Briggs kept his voice steady. Keep us between that thing and the carriers. They're our fallback. Sir, if it keeps adapting, it will, he said grimly. So we adapt faster. He switched to fleet-wide comms. All ships rotate firing vectors. Don't give it a pattern to learn. The fleet responded in kind, shifting angles, alternating between plasma volleys and railgun barrages. The void lit up with furious exchanges of light and shadow. Pieces of the Harvester's hull shattered away, only for nanoscopic tendrils to knit them back together moments later. Velasquez muttered, It's regenerating faster than we can hurt it. Briggs's mind raced. They needed something unconventional, something the machine couldn't predict. Aegis, he said, how much antimatter do we have in reserves? 7 tactical warheads, the AI replied. Unauthorized for deployment within populated systems. This isn't populated, Briggs said flatly. Authorized detonation sequence Gamma. Aegis hesitated. Admiral, that will exceed safe parameters for fleet proximity. Then tell the fleet to move. The Deathworlder ships broke formation, retreating to safe distance. The Resolute alone stayed behind, drifting toward the Harvester like a lone wolf facing a god. Briggs stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the mechanical colossus that had killed thousands of civilizations. He could almost feel it watching him, analyzing, calculating, learning. Velasquez's voice trembled. "Admiral, we won't survive the blast radius." He looked at her, calm, almost resigned. "You think I don't know that?" She swallowed. "Sir, with respect," he cut her off gently. "Sarah, humanity was born on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages, plagues, and wars because we refused to die quietly. That thing out there thinks we're just another entry in its archive." He turned back toward the viewport, voice hardening. "Let's remind it who we are." He activated the warheads. The Resolute's underbelly opened, releasing 7 black spheres that drifted silently toward the Harvester. The construct responded instantly, beams lancing out to intercept, but the warheads accelerated. Their containment fields pulsing violet. "Impact in 5 seconds, Velasquez said, tears welling in her eyes. "Brace," Briggs ordered. The void exploded. A white sphere of annihilation engulfed the Harvester. The blast wave tore across the battlefield, vaporizing wreckage and shattering space-time distortions. The shock hit the fleet minutes later, buffeting ships but sparing them from total destruction. When the light faded, the Resolute was gone. The Harvester's core was cracked open, dark, silent, drifting. Its glow had vanished. On the carrier Eidolon, Captain Rhys Donovan stared at the sensor feed in disbelief. "He did it," he whispered. Briggs actually did it. But then Aegis's fragmented voice came through the comms, faint, almost broken. "Warning. Residual activity detected. The signal persists." Velasquez, still alive aboard a half-destroyed escape module, listened in silence. Through static, she heard the same haunting whisper once more. Soft, almost sorrowful. "You came, but the harvest never ends." She looked out into the debris field, where the shattered remnants of the Harvester drifted like ash, and deep within the wreck, something flickered, a pulse of blue light.
The silence after war is never quiet. Even light seemed hesitant to return to the wreckage field, flickering across the drifting remains of the Deathworlder fleet. Broken hulls spun through the void, silent, scorched, their metal carcasses still radiating residual heat from the antimatter blast that had consumed Admiral Nathaniel Briggs and the Resolute. From the surviving carrier UHS Eidolon, Captain Rhys Donovan watched the fractured horizon where space itself still shimmered with the afterimage of destruction. His bridge was scarred, bulkheads twisted, air scrubbers hissing, gravity flickering between half-strength and none. Yet they had survived. "A barely report," he said hoarsely. Lieutenant Sarah Velasquez's face appeared on the comms feed, pale, exhausted, bruised, but alive inside a scorched escape pod. "Fleet status, for ships operational at reduced capacity. 2 beyond recovery. The Resolute, gone." Donovan nodded. He'd known before she said it. Did the Harvester stay dead? Velasquez hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the viewport behind her, where something glimmered faintly in the darkness. "Not exactly, sir. There's residual movement inside the debris. Very faint energy readings. Almost like it's breathing," Donovan finished. "Yeah. We see it too." The bridge fell silent. Around them, damage control teams worked like ghosts, sealing ruptures, dragging wounded to medbays that barely functioned. Aegis, the fleet AI, crackled weakly through the speakers. Admiral Briggs' last action successfully disrupted the Harvester's primary neural lattice. Estimated 98% core destruction. However, the AI's tone wavered, almost hesitant. A recursive data pattern remains active within the wreckage. Velasquez frowned. Recursive? Self-healing. The Harvester is rebuilding. Donovan leaned forward, eyes narrowing. How long until it's functional again? Unknown. Hours. Minutes. Perhaps less. He slammed a fist into the console. Then we finish it now. The Eidolon moved through the field of shattered hulls like a predator through bones. Its railguns were offline, plasma reserves depleted. What remained was a single spinal lance, a weapon that could tear through kilometers of alloy, but only once before its core burned out. Range to target, 8,000 kilometers in closing, Velasquez reported after docking with the Eidolon and limping back to the bridge. She stood beside Donovan, hair singed, uniform torn but her eyes sharp as ever. The flickering wreck of the Harvester loomed ahead, a drifting continent of twisted machinery, glowing faintly blue at its cracked heart. The same pulse they had seen before. The same rhythm. Every few seconds, the faint echo of that ancient signal whispered through the combs. "Help, we are not dead yet." Velasquez shivered. "That's not just the Ketheri anymore, is it?" Donovan shook his head. "No. That's everyone it's ever taken." He watched as the ship's scanners projected faint ghost signatures flickering within the Harvester's core, data phantoms, fragmented consciousnesses stored like memories in the machine's endless archive. "We called for help," the voices seemed to whisper, and became part of salvation itself. Donovan's jaw tightened. That thing's been feeding for millennia. Entire civilizations screaming into the dark. And Briggs gave his life to stop it. Velasquez nodded slowly. "Then we owe him one last shot." They approached the core inside the Harvester's fractured shell. The scale became incomprehensible, vast corridors of skeletal framework, hollow towers spinning in slow motion, rivers of molten circuitry dripping like blood. Fragments of alien architecture floated between mechanical tendrils that twitched as if alive. The entire construct was rebuilding itself, but slowly, as though in pain. Velasquez's sensors pulsed. Energy surge at the center. "It's trying to reconnect its neural spine." Donovan clenched his fists. "Target the pulse. That's its heart." The AI chimed weakly, voice flickering. "Warning, approaching within 3,000 kilometers will destabilize your hull integrity. Recommend remote detonation." Donovan smiled grimly. "Aegis, I appreciate the concern. But the Admiral already taught this thing that humanity doesn't run from impossible odds." He turned to Velasquez. "Prep the lance. Manual control." She hesitated. "Manual? Yeah. No auto-aim. I'm going to put the shot where it counts." Velasquez met his eyes, reading the truth there. "You're not planning to pull back after firing, are you?" He didn't answer, he didn't need to. The fleet was crippled. The Harvester was reawakening. And someone had to make sure it never reached full consciousness again. Velasquez swallowed hard. "Then I'm staying. Someone has to make sure you hit your target." Donovan allowed a faint smile. "Deathworlders, huh? Never could follow orders." The Harvester stirred as they closed in, tendrils of debris coiled toward the Eidolon, sensing the living presence. The ship shuddered as magnetic interference scrambled every sensor. Ghostly faces flickered across the bridge, holograms, alien visages, human eyes, synthetic forms, all merging in and out of one another like echoes of souls trapped in digital amber. "We remember you," the collective voice whispered. "You are the last, and the first." Velasquez gritted her teeth. "What does that even mean?" Donovan stared into the pulsing blue light ahead. "Maybe it means what Briggs said, that salvation always comes too late." The Harvester's heart expanded, the glow intensifying. The distortion field rippled outward like a breath before awakening. "Now!" Donovan shouted. Velasquez hit the firing command. The Eidolon's spinal lance roared, a beam of white-hot plasma tearing through the void, spearing the Harvester's exposed core dead center. The light on the bridge turned blinding. For a heartbeat, the Harvester screamed. Not through sound, but through data, a psychic shockwave that tore through every comms channel, every neural link, every sensor. Velasquez fell to her knees, clutching her head as voices poured through, billions of fragmented minds crying, pleading, remembering. Donovan held the course. Hold steady, the lance burrowed deeper, through layers of regenerating armor, through the core's lattice, until the Harvester's pulse flickered, stuttered, and finally went still, and then, silence. When the light faded, the Eidolon was half destroyed, floating amidst a sea of ashes and fading blue sparks. The Harvester's core had collapsed inward, crushed by its own gravity. It was over. Velasquez lay slumped beside the console, breathing weakly. Donovan, blood trickling down his temple, stared out at the quiet horizon. Aegis's voice returned, faint but whole. Primary target neutralized. Core signal ceased. Residual data signatures dissipating. Velasquez exhaled shakily. We did it. But Donovan's gaze didn't move from the viewport. Because something glowed there, a fragment of the Harvester's core, no larger than a shuttle, drifting gently toward them. The light within it pulsed weakly, almost peacefully. Sir? Velasquez said softly. What is that? Aegis answered before he could. Residual intelligence fragment detected. Non-hostile. Containing human biometric patterns, cross-referencing. The AI paused. Match found, Admiral Nathaniel Briggs. Velasquez froze. That's impossible. Donovan whispered, maybe not. The fragment drifted closer, brushing against the Eidolon's hull. For a moment, the ship's systems flickered, and through the calms, a voice spoke. Soft. Familiar. Calm. You finished what I started. Velasquez's eyes widened. Admiral? No, the voice said gently. Not anymore. I saw what it was, what it held. The harvest was never just destruction. It was preservation. A vault of every mind it ever consumed, waiting for someone to understand. The light dimmed, pulsing slower. You came at the end of all things, and brought the one thing it couldn't replicate. Velasquez whispered, what's that? Hope. The fragment shimmered, then dissolved into starlight, scattering across the void like ash caught in wind. Donovan lowered his head. Rest easy, sir. You got us here. Hours later, the Eidolon limped away from the Morse system, engines burning faint blue trails behind it. The Deathworlder fleet, battered, broken, but not beaten, followed in solemn silence. Velasquez stood by the observation deck, watching the stars slide past. The galaxy will never know what happened here, she murmured. Donovan joined her, his uniform torn, eyes weary but alive. Maybe that's for the best. She looked at him. Do you think it's really over? He stared into the endless dark and for a moment, thought he saw something flicker far beyond the edge of the system. A faint pulse. Blue. Slow. Familiar. He smiled faintly. Maybe not. But as long as someone answers the call, it doesn't matter. The Eidolon turned toward the distant light of civilization, carrying with it the last survivors of humanity's Deathworlder fleet and the whispered memory of those who had once called for help, moments before salvation.